Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating and honestly kind of ruthless topic. We're going to deconstruct the massive failure rate on YouTube and demystify exactly what separates the incredible success stories from, well, the vast majority of channels that simply fade away. If you've ever wondered why some creators skyrocket while others completely stall out, this explainer is going to lay out the data and the psychology behind it directly from our source material. So get ready, because we are literally breaking down the ultimate blueprint to reaching the top 1%.
Here is the blueprint we're covering today. We'll kick things off with a YouTube reality check, then dig into the creator mindset, navigate through growth advice, break down the content strategy, and finally, lock in on niche and consistency. All right, let's dive right into section 1, the YouTube reality check.
Hit pause for a second and just think about this number. 155 million. That is the sheer volume of channels currently out there in the YouTube wilderness. It's a massive, heavily saturated ecosystem you're stepping into.
Now, what's really striking about these milestones is how steeply the numbers drop off. The source data reveals a brutal funnel here. Basically, 90% of all those channels will never even hit 1,000 subscribers. Only 6% will ever make a single dime through monetization. A tiny 0.6% will ever touch that coveted silver play button. And reaching 1 million, that is reserved for less than 0.05%. So 99% fail, leaving a highly exclusive club. But why? Well, it's not just luck. It starts with their psychology.
Which brings us to section 2, the creator mindset.
The source material highlights a huge disconnect here between expectation and reality. You know, the beginner's delusion. Upload a video, the algorithm instantly falls in love with it, you hit your 4,000 watch hours, and boom, the passive income just rolls in. But the reality? It's a total grind in the shadows. Take the example of a creator named Saklan Khan. Viewers saw him go viral on his very first video on a new channel and assumed it was instant luck. But what they didn't see was his previous channel, where he posted over 500 unseen videos, painstakingly building up his scriptwriting and camera presence. It wasn't magic, you guys. It was an invisible mountain of effort.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue. Many want to be YouTubers, but very few actually want to make videos. It looks so easy on the surface, right? Just record, edit, upload. But the reality involves a massive checklist of tedious steps that beginners completely underestimate. Setting realistic, almost low expectations early on is absolutely crucial. If you expect a grueling process, every small win is motivating. But if you expect instant fame, your first flop is going to absolutely crush you. Let's move on to section 3, navigating growth advice.
So the source outlines this incredibly common, highly toxic cycle. Let's call it the doom loop. You see a growth video, you watch it, and your brain gets this hit of dopamine. It gives you a false sense of progress, like you just put in work on your channel. But then you just keep scrolling. You completely fail to apply a single piece of that newly learned info. Look, if you only improve your next project by 1%, that is actual progress. But staying stuck in this loop, that guarantees you remain in that bottom 90%. Furthermore, not all advice is good advice. The material provides a really actionable checklist of red flags to watch out for. If some guru promises you overnight monetization or suggests buying views and subscribers, literally run the other way. If they're telling you to lazily copy-paste someone else's content or obsessed over tweaking secret settings or finding magic algorithm hashtags, they are probably just confusing you to keep you watching their content rather than helping you actually grow yours. Now, to streamline that grueling production process, the source material actually highlights the emerging role of generative AI. Platforms like InVideo AI are being leveraged by creators to save massive amounts of time and resources. The source points out capabilities like generating full-length, ready-to-publish videos from simple text prompts, or editing purely through text commands without even touching a complex timeline. It even notes features like voice cloning and translating into over 50 languages. It's pretty clear that automation is being viewed as a key way to survive the heavy lifting of content creation without blowing through your entire budget.
Okay, moving into section 4, the content strategy. So, how do we actually build content that works? Well, the source bursts a massive beginner bubble right away. The myth of being 100% unique right out of the gate. Starting from scratch with a totally unique idea, unique editing, and unique pacing when you have absolutely zero data, it's a massive strategic mistake. Instead, you need to steal like an artist. Analyze what already works in your niche. Emulate the fundamentals of successful creators. Now, don't copy them blindly, but observe the patterns. It's like following a proven roadmap rather than wandering into the dark. Once you have that proven foundation, that's when you inject your USP, your unique selling point. This is a distinctive element that separates you from the pack. It could be your unique personality, a really engaging explaining style, or even a digital mascot. You're taking a concept that the audience already demonstrably wants to watch and delivering it in a way that only you can. Familiar, but completely distinct. And execute that effectively, you absolutely have to understand where to direct your energy. The source introduces this core framework, the 80-20 rule. It dictates that the vast majority of your results, so your views, your growth, will stem from a very, very small fraction of your overall effort. Notice how the massive block of standard production, researching, writing, recording, takes up 80% of your time and effort, but it's not what actually drives the click. The bulk of your success hinges entirely on that tiny 20% sliver of high-impact action. So what exactly is that crucial 20%? The source defines it perfectly as the packaging. It is your video idea, your title, your thumbnail, and your hook. Those crucial first 30 seconds. If the idea isn't compelling, the title isn't clickable, the thumbnail doesn't grab the eye, and the hook doesn't immediately validate the click, all those days of editing just don't matter because the video will never be seen. This packaging is the gatekeeper to your 80% results. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Niche and Consistency. The source drives home a really hard truth here. Knowing is not doing. You can sit here, watch this explainer, and understand the concepts of click-through rate or audience retention perfectly. But that conceptual knowledge doesn't magically grant you the skills to design a beautiful thumbnail or seamlessly edit a hook. Experience requires sacrifice. It requires making bad videos, ignoring haters, analyzing your failures, and consistently showing up to do the things the other 99% just aren't willing to do. However, there is a very strategic caveat here. Sometimes your failure isn't your fault, it's your environment. Consistency only works if you're in the right arena. It is completely valid and honestly often necessary to pivot and change your niche if your current space is vastly oversaturated, if your skills align better elsewhere, or if the target audience is just fundamentally too small to support a full-time channel. Recognizing those roadblocks and pivoting, that's a strategic move for sure, not a failure. Which brings us to our final thought, a truly provocative question from the source material to leave you with today. Take a hard look at your content. Are you actively building an audience by analyzing data, fixing your packaging, and providing unique value? Or are you just making videos as a hobby for yourself and wondering why nobody else is watching? Treat this explainer as your wake-up call. The 1% isn't out of reach, but it demands intention. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the world's most fascinating topics.